Throwdown Nation, we are back, we are live, and it is a Wednesday night. We are here with episode 25. We've actually done 25 of these now of
Wow.
the Throwdown with Matt. And tonight, my guest is the other half of Brutality Incorporated, the partner of last night's guest, Mark James. Mr. Alex Evans. How you doing, Alex?
Pleasure is mine, Matt. Thank you very much. I'm doing good. How are you?
Man, I cannot complain.
Good.
You know, I do want to sort of address the elephant in the room and just say all of our prayers go out to everybody impacted by the shooting at Appalachia High School that happened this morning. That's about 10 miles up the road from me, and man, that hits too close to home. So everybody just love each other, hug your kids, all that good stuff, and just be grateful for what you have.
Definitely.
So we'll go ahead and get on to the meat and potatoes here, and we'll ask the first and most obvious question, Alex, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
Well, my first go around in this was about 10 years ago, and I took a bit of a hiatus, and then back into the mix and in the scene in North Carolina since December of 21. So just about going on 3 years again this time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So who trained you?
LeBron Cozone at the Firestar Pro Wrestling Training Academy.
Okay.
Put onto him. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I started to research and really just gotten the itch to just pull the trigger and do this, full steam ahead. And I was put on to LeBron and Firestar, and like I said, I walked in there December 11th of 21 and never looked back and just hit the ground running ever since.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, speed round.
Okay, I'm ready.
Jay White.
Ooh, oh man, there's so many things you can say about Jay White. Untapped potential. Jay's been all over. I mean, he did his thing with the Bullet Club and everything in New Japan, and then coming over to AEW more recently. But I think Jay is one of those guys, one of those talents where it's like you think you've seen everything that he can do, and it's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I was going to say you haven't even scratched the surface as to what that guy is capable of.
Not even close, and I think it's super cool that. And not to say that New Japan doesn't have a big, huge audience or is mainstream, because they are. But I think to see the impact he's had since he debuted with AEW, and just to be able to watch and see where this journey is going to take him there, it's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, definitely untapped potential so far.
Absolutely. I'm hoping they will start to do a little more with him, because I think if they don't, they're really missing out on something great.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, the whole Bullet Club thing is awesome, and the Bullet Club Gold and what he's doing with the guns and stuff like that, and Juice Robin, it's awesome. But like when he can start to kind of go out on his own, you know what I mean, and just open up the box of potential opponents he can go out there and have these stellar matches with, I think it's going to be definitely like must-see TV, something to watch every week.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So, have you been a lifelong fan of this stuff, or was there a particular point in your life where you knew you kind of wanted to try to make a go of this? Was there a point where you were looking at it and you were like, I can do this?
Yeah. So I was first turned on to wrestling when I was 4 years old. I grew up in upstate New York, and I lived in like a 2-family duplex, right? So me and my family lived upstairs, and then on the bottom floor was my aunt, uncle, and cousins. And my cousin would always used to come upstairs and sneak me downstairs, after my parents were asleep, to watch Saturday night's main event or whatever would have been on a Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
And like, sometimes you hear guys who will say like, yeah, I watched wrestling when I was a kid, and then I got older, and like I stopped for a while and I got back into it. I never stopped. I was just from 4 years old, middle school, high school, college, adulthood. I never stopped. So lifelong fan. Was there ever a point in time where I want to say always, it's always the dream, and you'll watch it and you're like, man, I wonder what it'd be like to do that. And then when I started training, and I was just like, I can do this, you know what I mean? And I can do this at an acceptable level, and learn to get better and to keep progressing. And it gets to a point where, this should be fun, right? Wrestling should be fun.
Right.
If you're a worker or a wrestler. And yes, it's tough, and it's not easy. It's hard. But when it's fun and you look forward to doing it, and whether it's the camaraderie in the locker room or just the match, or being allowed to just go out there and try and show off in front of a crowd, when that is fun and it just becomes a passion, it makes it easy,
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I was telling Mark last night, I've been a fan, varying levels of fandom, but I mean, it never entirely went away.
Yeah.
Since I was around 11 as a kid in Florida, and in another couple of weeks, I'm going to be 55. So, I grew up in the territory days, saw the whole Monday Night Wars, saw the rise and fall of ECW,
So you
and
had good stuff in Florida, man, with Florida
oh
Championship
yeah,
Wrestling and the Grahams and Dusty. You had a lot of good stuff to watch.
oh absolutely. I mean, I was telling him my one of my earliest wrestling memories was watching the story arc with Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan, and
Yeah.
great stuff, man. Gordon Soley was the commentator back then.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was
Gordon's in a league of his own, and we recently lost Kevin Sullivan, rest in peace. But
yeah.
that stuff he was doing with Dusty, and
Oh yeah.
um, it was way ahead of its time. But stuff that Kevin was
Oh, it
doing back
was.
in the day.
It was. The whole thing with the purple haze. Mark
Oh
Lewin
yeah,
and
Mark Williams.
his whole army of darkness. I mean, it was. And when you're 11 years old, Kevin Sullivan was a scary dude. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I mean, like Kevin Sullivan back in those days was like the equivalent of like what the Undertaker was for me growing up when
yeah,
the Undertaker first came around. It just different levels. The volume was different for each of them, but
right.
that's why I said what Kevin was doing was way ahead of his time, and it worked and it lasted, and he made a hell of a career off of it
Yep,
too. So
absolutely. So, speed round.
okay.
Dean Malenko.
if if not the one of the most underrated technical wrestlers ever. Um,
Yep.
you could very easily put Dean Malenko up there with like a Bret Hart or a Kurt Hennig, or he got his time to shine, and when he did, he did. You know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah.
probably one of the most underrated workers, and also probably one of the most underrated minds that
Hmm.
there are in a business. I mean, Dean could go out there and have a match, a good match with anybody. That's just how
Yep.
good he was.
He has been a great backstage get for AEW. I
Yeah,
mean, they are fortunate to have gotten him. I
yeah.
mean,
Pretty sure he's a backstage agent, and
yeah.
I mean, if you walk into an arena and you look on that board or that run sheet and you see that Dean Malenko is the agent for your match, you know it's going to be a fun night. And
Yep,
you got one of the best sitting there giving their input, so it's almost like you can't go wrong.
absolutely. So, away from wrestling, what are some of your other hobbies and interests in life?
Oh man, I'm an like I've been working out and going to the gym since I was 14 years old. And when I started doing it, like I wasn't playing any sports at the time. I'd stopped doing that. I wanted to work out. Like I enjoy it. And that's just obviously now into as I've gotten older and the profession that I've chosen to try and pursue it, it's helped out extremely. So I love working out. I'm a big sports guy. Recently, in the last like 3 to 4 years, I've become very big into sports cards and stuff
Hmm,
like that. So I buy and sell sports cards. But yeah, probably the gym and like sports collectibles and trading cards and stuff. I love all that stuff.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it's it's been fun, like I said, we're both parents, so I mean, how busy parenthood can keep you.
Oh yeah.
But my son, for I guess the last 5 years now, has been playing lacrosse, and he loves it, and it's been interesting. The first few seasons, I really didn't have a heck of a lot of understanding of what in the world was going on. But
Mhm.
I've learned enough to have a fairly decent understanding of the game, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, yeah,
So,
especially when it's your kid too. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah,
It's just,
yeah,
it's so much fun, and it just brings like this crazy sense of joy. Like my son just turned 5 in August,
hmm,
and he just started t-ball, and he loves it. I'm a big baseball guy. He loves playing t-ball. He just had his first game earlier tonight, and it's so much fun to go out there and watch them having fun and help them and coach them and being a dad is just it's the
oh,
great.
there's nothing like it, man.
No, there's not.
Nothing.
It's the apps and it's cliche and cheesy and corny as a saying as it may be because we've all heard it all before. But if you are fortunate enough to be a parent, to be a dad, specifically for us, there's just not a better feeling. You know what I mean? It's so cool. It's you can't even put it into words. It's tough to explain, but there's just not a feeling like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, is wrestling anything approaching a full-time thing for you, or do you have a day job?
I have a day job. I own a restaurant.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
also surprised. I'm also a contract attorney. I went to law school, so I've been doing that for 10 years or so. Um, but yeah, if I could get it to the point where it could be a full time go around, I can support myself and my son and family and take care of everything. Absolutely. Is it getting there? I don't know. I've done a lot in this last year. Who knows what the next year or two or couple is going to hold? But it would definitely be acceptable in my mind if it did turn into just a full time gig and I'd be able to do that. Then, that's the goal. When you can provide and take care of yourself and your family doing what you love to do. Not saying that I don't love doing what I do outside of wrestling, but it's not necessarily my passion, right?
Right.
Um, when I could get to that point where I could do that wrestling, absolutely, hands down, that's going to be an easy thing to walk away from everything else. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah.
So, so you said that your hometown currently is Raleigh, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and your hometown is upstate New York.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is your favorite thing about Raleigh?
Taxes, um, the weather. I'm back in New York. Like I'm a big place. Like I like to enjoy like seasons throughout the year.
Hmm.
And here in Raleigh in North Carolina, like you kind of get them right. Like when
Right.
our winter here is like it's nothing like back in New York. You know what I mean?
Oh
If it
no.
gets if it gets down to like 50, I mean that's cold here. 40, it's cold here. I mean, if there's even like a 50% chance that there's going to be any sort of accumulation, like snow wise down here in North Carolina, the schools will close, right?
Yeah.
If you got 2 or 3 inches of snow down here, like everything would shut down for a week. It'd be like the apocalypse, end of the world. Like no one knows what
Oh
to do.
yeah.
And it's just like back home, it's just like, man, when I was a kid and inches of snow on the ground, like you'd be lucky to get a 1 hour delay. Like you're going to school. It's not the same, you know?
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, no, definitely, the lifestyle down here is awesome. I like to compare Raleigh to like a little big city, right?
Hmm.
It's always just expanding and getting bigger. And, there's always new innovative stuff opening up all in the Triangle area. And it was like just recently voted like the fifth best city to live in the country for young professionals. So I love Raleigh, but it's definitely culture shock a little bit if from going from like New York to down here.
Hmm.
Someone opens the door for you down here in North Carolina. You're welcome, sir. Yes, ma'am. What? Like back home in New York, you look at someone the wrong way, and it's just like,
Yeah.
woo, like, okay, buddy, you know. So, but yeah, no, I love being down here in North Carolina. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere unless this thing takes me somewhere else.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny, being down here in Atlanta, it's the same thing. We've got four seasons, and but like you were saying, if we get so much as a dusting of snow,
Oh,
everything
forget
just grinds to a halt.
it. Oh yeah.
And the year after I finished college, this was 1993. We had the blizzard of 93 down here, and we got a foot and a half of snow in Atlanta.
Wow.
And let me tell you, we were completely paralyzed for about 10 days.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We were totally unprepared for that level of snow. It
Oh
was
yeah.
nuts.
I mean, even down here, I recently found this out within the last year is that like, like emergency vehicles like plows and stuff like that.
Right.
North Carolina shares their emergency vehicles, if you will, with South Carolina. So they
Okay.
probably got like 10 plows between the two states. It's one of them gets it, like they don't know how to handle it. That they can't handle it down here. It's just that's why if it's just like you get 4 or 5 inches of snow down here, it's school's closed for a week and grocery stores are ransacked and there's just nothing to be had anywhere. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it really it gives you the feeling of what a post-apocalyptic
Yeah,
situation might
yeah,
be like
yeah. You
on a
get a lot
small
of
scale.
you got a lot of. I've seen a lot of like insight in what would it be like if the zombies attack down here, but
Yeah,
just put it into the perspective of like snow. It's just like
yeah,
you guys got to calm down. It's just snow. It's not like acid rain falling from the sky. It's snow.
right.
It's
Yep,
okay.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. So, they say that the best wrestling personas are yourself turned up to 11.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about in-ring Alex Evans and kind of compare and contrast him with everyday you.
Well, depending on who you ask, there might not be that big of a difference between the two. Yeah, I mean, Alex Evans is just me. Just the volume goes from a 2 to 11. You know, it's just I'm a very aggressive individual as it is. If there's something that I want, I'm gonna get it, and there's not a person walking God's green earth that's gonna stop me from doing what I want to do. I'm not sitting here trying to say like I'm the biggest, baddest, and toughest guy in the world, but it's gonna take a lot and a lot of people to stop me from getting what I want or what I want to do. And if it means I got to hurt some people along the way, as long as I don't get arrested or in trouble,
So
that's
be
what's
it.
that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen. You know.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell me, don't tell us, that is, about your very first match. What was it like? How did it go? What were your feelings about it? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So my first match, just a week or two ago, Mark and I were on a show for Firestar. It was Wrestle Revival 11. My first ever match, I was on the pre-show of Wrestle Revival 9. And I was in a triple threat match. And it was as good as it was going to get. I ended up picking up the win. That was my first Wrestle Revival. It was my first match. So yeah, it was a triple threat match. It was with me, another local talent, Elliot Schock, and another individual, Jason Land. And we went in there and for 10 minutes had a pretty decent triple threat match and ended up walking away getting the W in that one. So that was my first match almost. That was about 2 years ago.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So speed round. Big Van Vader.
Oh man. Golly. Probably one of the most agile big men you'll ever see in the ring. I put him up there close to like with a guy like Yokozuna. You know what I mean? Like guys that big should not be able to do the things that they did in the ring.
I know.
When you saw Vader go up there for his Vader salt, the big moons, a 450-pound man shouldn't be able to do a backflip off the top rope,
Exactly.
and he did. And he's probably one of the hardest hitting big guys I've ever seen in the business, much to the chagrin of some of his opponents, I'm sure. But Vader was top 5 big men ever in this business, hands down.
Yeah, I remember seeing him for the first time and just being shocked. I felt like the guy was defying the laws of physics.
And he was,
yeah,
and he was. And he was. I mean, look at the guy got his eye popped out in the middle of the match, just pushed it back in and then finished it. It's just like they don't make them like that anymore. You know what I mean? They don't. So definitely top 5 big men ever in the business.
I would have actually liked to have seen a Vader in his prime against a Lesnar in his prime. That would have been interesting just to see.
It would have been nice to see because Vader definitely took his shots. When he was working those big paws of his. I mean, those weren't necessarily working punches.
No, no. He worked stiff.
Understatement. Yeah, understatement. Yeah, he worked stiff. So, I mean, I don't think many people would want to stiff Brock Lesnar in the ring.
No,
because he's going to give it right back. I mean, I don't know if we remember what happened in the match with him and Braun Strowman a couple of years ago, where Braun accidentally tagged him, and less than 2 seconds later, Brock threw just a straight right into Braun's temple, and he slowed him down. So, and that would definitely be a sight to see: a prime Vader and a prime Brock Lesnar. They might not even be able to finish that type of match, man. They might just go into a straight shoot and just see what the hell would happen.
Just hold my beer and let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been very, very fun to see. Very fun to see.
Yeah. So, we've heard about your first match. So now tell us about your favorite match that you've been a part of thus far.
Thus far, I would have to say it's probably the last DLC match that Mark and I just had 2 weeks ago at Firestar Pro Wrestling. It was us, the Allen brothers, Steve and Rob, and then the top shooters, Maurice Moss and Trader Rula. And I think we went on like right before intermission, I think it was. and not to toot our own horns, man, but we just absolutely killed it in that match. There was no plateau in action or energy. It was just we started like this and we just went like this for 20 minutes. And just the amount of talent that we had to work with in that match. Both those other two teams are just super talented guys. And it's tough in those matches, to tell a story, right?
Right.
But, because you just think a DLC match, you got doors, ladders, and chairs, it's going to be absolute chaos and shit's going to be everywhere and blood and guts and all that stuff. And, there's some of that too, but the six of us went in there from bell to bell and just told one hell of a story. And it was funny. Gabe Sapolsky was in the audience for that match. I don't know if you know or aware who Gabe is, but Gabe was yeah. And I remember I was walking back to the locker room and I stopped and shook Gabe's hand and thanked him for being there to watch the show and witness some of the talent that we were able to showcase in that night. And I just asked him real briefly, I hope you enjoyed the match. And he was just like, man, it was awesome. He goes, it reminded him of, old school Ring of Honor. And he goes, you guys went in there and match of the night so far. And I've stole the show so far. And he goes, I just hope others appreciate what you guys just put each other through while you were out there. And that alone to me
that's high praise. I mean,
yeah. Cause that guy's if you want to talk about a guy that has an eye for talent, it's Gabe Sapolsky. That's literally what his role is right now in the WWE. He's the head talent scout. So to hear him say that, and if that guy who has seen everybody under the sun from ECW to when he had Evolve and now WWE and everything that everyone he's seen come and go and signed and had a hand in signing, for him to be able to sit there and say what these six indie guys just did out there was good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good with that.
He had a hand recently in MLW as well, didn't he?
I don't know. I don't believe so. Maybe he might have been in the inception of MLW, but I know he's been with the WWE since pre-COVID,
right.
so he's been with them for a while. Maybe. Right. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, what have been some of the most unusual experiences that you've had in wrestling so far? Anything weird or unique?
Like from fans' perspective, like some weird.
I mean, it can be interactions with fans. It can be weird stuff going on with a venue. Weird stuff on the road. Anything.
I mean, when it comes to fans and stuff like that, when my career is all said and done, I'm gonna write a book, and I'm just gonna call it the list of the most unusual requests I've gotten fans, and it'll be in the mature book section because some of this stuff is just absurd. But yeah, some of that stuff is. I've gotten some weird stuff, and we don't need to go into details. But it's just
that's fine.
Why would you really? Or whatever. But man, we've worked in some not so much just unusual or weird, but just for instance, this past Sunday, Mark and I were in a match with CW and Anderson and Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah.
And it was probably 100 degrees outside and probably 150 inside this building. No AC, no nothing. There's always stuff like that. And then you get, you work in, some promotions, shitty rings and this, that, and the other. And you got one job, and it's just to go out there and try to do the best that you can. And I feel like whether it's just been me or Mark and I, we go out there, we put on a hell of a show. The crowd goes home happy. They tell us they're happy. They come back and see us again. So mission accomplished. But outside of that, just nothing too crazy outside of the fan stuff. But outside of that, just the normal, well, this is small, or God, man, it's hot in here type deals. But
yeah,
nothing out of the ordinary.
Gotcha. Well, it had to be a real thrill and a great experience to have the chance to work with Dreamer and C.W. Anderson.
Yeah, man. Both of them just, growing up watching both of them in ECW. CW, and it's my first time I got to work CW. I've been fortunate enough to watch him work. Working on the same shows on the same card with him, so I've got to see him up close and work. And man, CW Anderson is one of those guys that, don't get me wrong, he gets a lot of credit, but not as much as he deserves. CW can do like the smallest thing in the ring and just make it mean so much. It could be a headlock or that crazy strong as hell left punch that he throws. Anything that he does in there just looks good from how small and minute it could be. He makes it mean that much more, which is just a testament to how great of a worker and how great of a mind he is in this business. And Tommy Dreamer, it's just, Tommy Dreamer's a legend. It was just, it's fun. Never in a million years in the past year did I ever think I'd be able to get to work with some of the talented guys that Mark and I have. But Tommy Dreamer, it's just like, man, he's a genius. You know what I mean? He really is. He's been doing it for so long, and to hear him try to put together and structure our match was just, like the show started at 6:15. I think Tommy was out at his gimmick table till like 6:30. So the show had started and we're waiting for him to come back, and like we're on fourth, and he just comes down, he comes in the back, he sits in a chair, he puts his boots down in front of him, he just tilts his head back and he goes, "All right, so we'll start. We'll do this, bop, 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 the other, yada, 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 boom, 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 bang, boom, boom, blah, blah," and everyone goes home happy in like 4 minutes. It was just not even that. Like with his eyes closed, just sitting back, and they'll be like, no, let's reverse that. You do that. It's just, and boom, just like that, he was able to put together a match with two guys he's never worked with. He's worked with CW a million times, but I don't think they've ever tagged together. Right. And it's funny. Mark and I were just talking about this a couple hours ago because we were laughing about it because it happened live on Sunday. We were just sitting in the ring, and Man in the Box hits, and here comes Tommy Dreamer and CW, and you're just sitting there watching them walk down, and me and Mark are in the corner, and Mark is just like, he goes, just Tommy effing Dreamer is walking down the ring. We're about to wrestle him. He goes, "Isn't this crazy?" And I'm just like, yeah. It's pretty crazy. I was just so in the zone, like kind of just taking it all in. I just want to be in the ring. I just want to be in that moment with one of my best friends and Mark and my tag team partner, and just to soak that all in. I got goosebumps talking about it right now. Just to soak that all in was just crazy. You can't replicate or mimic moments like that. That's something that I'm going to remember forever.
Moments like that are just pure magic.
It is what it is. And the thing with me, and I still like, I get so nervous before I go out for a match, and the crowd wouldn't know it, thank God. Maybe because I'm this badass Alex Evans, just smash mouth guy that just goes out there and destroys shit. But I get so nervous, man. Like I almost to the brink of like where it's like a almost panic attack. Like I feel like I'm nauseous. Like, and Mark always tells me he hates this. I don't want to say he reprimands me, but like I could just see him like staring through my soul, like where he's just like, "What's wrong, man?" I was just like, "Dude, I'm just nervous." He's like, "Do this shit every time, man. You do it every time." I'm like, yeah. And like and again, it's like a common saying. Once the music hits and you walk out there, and whatever type of reaction you get from the crowd, you know what I mean? And then while you're in the ring and like you're spurring, it all goes away. It all goes away. Anything you thought you might forget or that you want, it all goes away. You become present in the moment, and it goes away. But I still get nervous as all hell before I walk out there. Once I'm out there, I'm fine. When I can interact, when I'm left alone is the problem. You know what I mean? Like when I start to get just too deep into my own thoughts and I
Yep.
start to overanalyze this, like I'll sit there and I go to Mark, like, should I do this or should I do that? Just like, Mark's just like, Alex, do whatever you want, man. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you want. And
Yep.
we walk back there and Mark's always just like, you see, you dumbass, like, you're fine. Like, you're good.
You know, we can all be our own worst enemies. So, you know, if you get too far into your own head, you know. So one thing, and this is actually kind of a good segue.
Sure.
I actually want to hear how you and Mark got together. As you know, we had talked a little bit about it before we went on the air. So I do want to hear the story of how Brutality Incorporated came to be.
Yeah. So when I started training at Firestar, Mark was just making his comeback into the business. Mark was a 20-year vet, and he took some time off, and he was just starting to come back around. So I'd see Mark at Firestar shows, and it was always just a quick like, "Hey, how are you? How you doing? Good to see you." And then Mark and I were actually both casted to be extras in this independent movie about independent wrestling.
Cool.
So we had to go to the venue, the location to film for that day. And that was really the first time, like I said before that, and it was just in passing, like, hey, how are you? Like, good match, good to see you. Cool. That was the first time where Mark and I actually got to sit down and talk, was just like in between takes and stuff where we just had to sit around for a half hour to an hour until we needed to do the next shoot or whatever it was. That was the first time Mark and I got to really just sit down and talk and get to know each other a little bit more. And then shortly thereafter, maybe like a month or two after that, Mark actually had approached me and messaged me and had said like, hey man, like I was approached about doing this, this faction. And he's like, I'd be interested and would like you to be a part of it. And of course, absolutely, sure, that'd be awesome. And then that never came to fruition with some of the other individuals that's supposed to be involved in it. So Mark was just like, screw it, we'll do it ourselves. And I think the first time Mark and I had a tag team match together was February of 23 was the first time we had a tag match. And like I said before, we hit the ground running, never looked back. And, like he's one of my best friends. I talk to Mark every day. It's not just like one of those things like I'll talk to you when we're booked together. I talk to Mark literally probably every day. My son calls him Uncle Mark. His kids call me Uncle. He's not, he's more than just that's what's so cool. And that's why it's so much fun being in a tag team with Mark, outside of the fact of how much he's taught me. And I get the best seat in the house, right? Like everyone knows who Mark James is in North Carolina and the surrounding Southeast. Everyone knows who Mark James is. So, he's been able to open a lot of doors for me in the business. And to be able to do what we do is special in its own, but to be able to do it with someone that you literally consider like a brother and a best friend, and just being able to watch, I'm literally on the apron while Mark's in there working. And he teaches me so much without teaching me, if that makes sense. Because I'm just able to sit there and watch. And then after the match, I'm able to sit there and pick his brain. Or, 2-3 days later, after we work somewhere, I can call him up and be like, what did you think about, like, was that good? And one thing about Mark is that he will not blow smoke. You know what I mean? Like, he will tell you, like, that sucked. That was stupid. Why did you do that? Why are you thinking about doing that? So for him to say, like, man, great job. That was awesome. Good stuff. I know it was a good night. If he tells me, man, that was so much fun, you did great. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to be out there with some schmuck that's going to make him look bad. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I know he's not like bullshitting me because he's told me, Alex, why did you do that? Like, you didn't need to do that. don't do it ever again. Like, try to not do that. You know what I mean? So I know, when he tells me something's good, it's good. And if I get that from him, I'm happy. You know what I mean? If I get his approval and he goes home happy and he goes home knowing that we just put on a hell of a show together, I'm good.
Absolutely. So, do you have a preference yourself between working heel or babyface?
Heel. Yeah, I mean, definitely heel. Like, even like during my training when I was at Firestar, LeBron Kozum, who's the trainer, another very good friend of mine, he was just like, he goes, "You're just a natural heel." He said, you got the look. He would say, he goes, "You can talk, you can, you're decent, you're good in the ring." He's just like, just go with it. You know what I mean? And for me personally, it's funner for me to be the bad guy, right? Everyone likes the bad guy. You know what I mean? Everyone wants to be the bad guy. And again, I'm not saying like I'm a bad guy like in real life, but like, I'm not the biggest people person in the world. I keep my circle small. Like, I probably talk to like 10 people, on a yearly, monthly, weekly basis, whatever it is. But within my circle of friends and stuff like that, I try to be there as much as I can for them, because obviously they're in my circle. So if they need something, I'm going to help them. I always have this saying, like, look, if I'm eating, everyone's eating, type thing. But definitely heel. I love being a bad guy, man. It's terrible to say, but it almost comes so natural to me to be that, just that dick son of a gun that people want to wait for in the parking lot. And it's happened, and there's been instances, and no one does anything about it, but I love when they get in my face, and it's just, it's just fun to be a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, as a fan, I have always found the heels to generally be more compelling characters than the baby faces. And for me, the reason is it's always interesting to me to sort of learn the backstory and the why they're a heel. Because usually there's a reason. They're not being an asshole just to be an asshole. There's usually a compelling reason why they are the way they are. And the ones that I really get a charge out of are the people that can transition from heel to babyface and back and really not change much about their character except for very subtle things that will influence how the crowd is going to receive them. And I mean, to me, that's just magic.
I mean, I think the best perfect example of that is one of the biggest stars that this business ever seen in Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin was a bad guy, right? But he was just such a cool bad guy. And the stuff that he was doing was, again, ahead of his time, innovative. It was shock TV for the Attitude Era, if you will. And he didn't change anything, right? He didn't, from when he was Stunning Steve Austin. Maybe he turned up the volume a little bit when he was Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he didn't change anything. Not in his appearance, not in the way he talked, not the way he worked in the ring. He did nothing. He didn't change anything. He didn't need to, because he just had him here, in the palm of his hand. Whether he was a heel or whether he was I don't even, like, I hate calling Stone Cold Steve Austin like a baby face, right? Because it wasn't his intention. You know what I mean? Like, he was just going out there as being Steve Williams, Stone Cold Steve Austin on 20, and that's just what happened.
He was what he was.
That's it. He never changed his gear, his look, nothing. It just, he went with it, and whatever happened, happened. That was it.
Right. Well, the thing that I found interesting was, and it really changed a lot of how fans received wrestling and such was the rise of the NWO, because they were really kind of the first cool heels.
Yeah,
And it sort of that began to blur the line between what is truly a heel and what could be a baby face with a little bit of,
again, yeah, it's just
yeah,
the NWO was that big heel, and they were taking over WCW faction, and
right,
even though they were the bad guys, they were just so cool. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, you tuned in when the NWO was on TV. You watched Nitro to see what the NWO was going to do, or who was going to join
right,
this week, or who they were going to beat up, or whatever the case may
right. I
be.
mean,
It doesn't, man, listen, it doesn't get cooler than Hogan coming out to Hendrix strumming a
oh,
guitar
absolutely,
with all those guys.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you can't top that. It's impossible.
playing his belt,
Yeah,
I mean,
the air
yeah,
guitar on the title.
yeah,
It's just, come
yeah,
on. Man. Like,
yeah,
what's a cooler image than that? There's just not. There's not.
exactly, exactly. So, in terms of your in-ring work and your promos, who and or what would you say are some of your influences? It could be, other wrestlers, it could be pop culture, whatever. What do you feel like has influenced your product?
Uh, from like the workers' perspective, um, Bret Hart, it was huge for me. Mr. Perfect, it was another guy that was huge for me. And then, yeah, as you got on into like the later areas, I'd say like ring work and stuff
Hmm.
like that, would be like the Bret and the Mr. Perfect and stuff like that. And then later on, when it came to just like heel work and mic work, like Randy Orton, Triple H, their heel work, like 2009 Randy Orton will never be touched when it comes to like heel work. It's not going to happen. And he could do it without saying one word. You know what I mean? It was just the
Hmm.
stare in his eye. I mean, I remember where it was like for 3 or 4 weeks straight, where he literally went out there and punted every member of the McMahon family in the head. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And he was feuding with Triple H at the time, and I'll never forget it. There's just this one promo where Orton was in the ring, and Vince McMahon came out, and Orton never touched the microphone. He never spoke. It was just the glare that he had, and he was just looking at McMahon in the face. And McMahon got ready to say, "Randy Orton, you're fired." And
Yeah.
before he could say Orton just open hand smacked at Vince across the face, veered back, and then just punted him in the head. And it was just like, man, his character work is something. He was just in that mode, but then like it was like he realized what he did, and it was just like the oh my god type moment. So it was just like, is this guy okay? Like, he's such a badass, but that he just punted this old man's head, his boss, out of the arena. And now he's like, oh my God, I let those demons get to me. Like, that prime, like that, Randy Orton is just untouchable. And when it comes to heel work, is just top of the chain.
Absolutely. So, speed round. Will Ospreay.
Oh man. Will Ospreay is another guy. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, like they're over him because he's overexposed, and we've seen him do everything in New Japan. No, you haven't. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
No, you haven't. You haven't seen a tenth of what that guy can do yet. And some people look at maybe his work isn't for everybody, right? With the flips and this, that, and the other. That's fine. If that's not your drink of choice, fine. But you cannot take away from the guy's athletic ability and
Oh,
what he's able to do in that ring. I mean, he could go out there with a broom and probably have a great match. You know what I mean?
yep,
So I hate to piggyback off what we talked about with Jay White, but again, it's untapped. There's so
yep.
much more on the road for him.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan, a match that you could have watched a million times, and it just never gets old, and there's always some new nuance every time you watch it.
It's funny you say that. Yeah. For me, what I personally think is like the greatest match of all time was Brett versus Shawn WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match. That's one of those matches that I probably watch weekly because, like you just touched on, even though I've seen it millions of times, probably at this point, there's always something that I can, when I'm watching that match over again, that's like almost like I'm seeing it for the first time, or that it's new, and maybe it's something that I catch on to because it's something that like I experienced in the ring a week or two ago, or whatever the case may be. But there's always something new that I find while watching that match, whether it's a mannerism, a hold, a move, the duration of how long something went, or the selling of something, whatever it would be. It's always something new that I pick up every time I watch that match. And I feel like that is a match that if anyone wants to become a professional wrestler and wants to see this sport in its truest and purest form, you go watch that 60-minute Iron Man match with Brett and Shawn from WrestleMania 12, because from start to finish, it's hands down, in my opinion, the best match ever. Close second behind that, which I feel like is a lot of answers to, is probably is Taker and Shawn at Mania 25. It's just from the story that's involved in it to the, I mean, like, you want to talk about an emotional roller coaster watching a wrestling match. It was that, it was that match. And then for them to go out there and do it again a year later. And try to veer away and not have the same exact type of match that they did the year before. You can't do that now. It hasn't been done since, and you can't. I know they did like Rock and Cena back-to-back Manias, 28, 29. Not the same. You know what I mean? It was cool, whatever. It was cool, but when it comes to Taker and Shawn, it's not the same. So, yeah, definitely Brett, Shawn, Iron Man, WrestleMania 12, and Taker, Shawn from Mania 25. Favorite matches ever.
Yeah. A match I always bring up because it's in my top 3 is back in 1989, an I Quit match between Ric Flair and Terry Funk. I don't know if it was like I said, it was 1989. It was.
I'm pretty sure that match took place at a Clash of the Champions.
It did, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that match was in a place called Troy, New York, and it was at the RPI Fieldhouse, which is like 20 minutes from where I lived in upstate New York.
Cool.
So I know exactly what match you're talking about. Fantastic. I mean, Terry Funk is Terry Funk, right? I mean, the guy's like Mount Rushmore. And then Flair in the same breath is same thing. Watching those two work when they did in the late 80s was unbelievable. Yep.
Absolutely great match. Yeah, that's one I always recommend to anybody. If you haven't seen that match, seek it out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm almost positive. I mean, we could do a fact check. I'm almost positive it was a Clash of the Champions WCW show from Troy, New York.
Very cool. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent for you? Who would you just absolutely love to work?
Brett,
yeah.
Hands down, yeah.
By the way, I love the Bret Hart tribute gear you guys have had recently. That is just awesome.
That's my favorite set of gear that I have. 4 different sets of gear that I wear, and I've only worn that once so far. But I remember I had this vision because I literally took Because, Brett always had awesome stuff, man. Like whether it was the pink and black, the all black, the all pink, whatever it was. But one of my favorite gears that he ever wore was like early mid 1994, where it was like the black and it just had like paint spatter, it looked like, on it. And I wanted to kind of pay like an homage to that. But yeah, that's awesome that you picked that up, that it was the Brett tribute gear. But yeah, it's my favorite set of gear that I own.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, comparatively, you haven't been doing this that long. So I don't know if this really applies yet, but what hurts right now? Does anything hurt?
Everything hurts. Everything hurts. I mean, I've only been doing this for 3 years, but especially after the month that Mark and I just had.
I'm sure.
Man, we went from a DLC match, and then a week later, another DLC match, and then a week later, it was the Extreme Rules match with Tommy and CW. But I always say, man, like, something's always going to hurt. You know what I mean? Like, as a wrestler, you're never going to work a match at 100%.
No.
You're just, you know what I mean? People tend to forget that, like, as professional wrestlers, you have to rewire your brain, right? And any instincts that you had growing up or being taught goes all out the window. You know what I mean? Like, if you were walking in the grocery store or down the street and it's an icy sidewalk and you slip and you're going to fall back, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to put your hands back to try to break your fall, right? Like, you can't do that in a wrestling match. Like, you're going to break your arm, your wrist, or something. So having to, like, again, rewire your brain and be like, well, don't put your hands back. You have to land flat on your back. Otherwise, you are going to F your shit up. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's, they recently did a study. I don't know if it was actually out of Harvard or Yale, did a study where they said that taking a bump in a wrestling ring is the equivalent of being rear-ended by a car at about 35 miles an hour. So in a normal wrestling match, say you take 5, 6, 10 big moves in that match, well, you just got rear-ended by a car 10 times, right? In 10, 15 minutes. So, and your body, it does get used to it. You know what I mean? I'm not crazy sore the next day or anything like that, but it's just, you always have these constant, just naggy, just like aches and pains. You got to remember, there's no off season, right? I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, I'll see you guys in 6 months. No, that's not. You can't even sit there and say, I'll see you guys in 6 weeks. You know what I mean? You don't get time to.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you in 6 days, maybe. Like, but other than that, no. So yeah, nothing crazy. About a little over 2 weeks ago, I ruptured my eardrum. And then I've had to wrestle these crazy matches the last 2 weeks with that. So that, that didn't tickle and it didn't feel good, but it's just, you got to do it, man. We signed up for this, you know what I mean? No one's forcing us to do this. So we, it's like, going into this, like, it's going to hurt. You're going to get hurt. Hopefully, nothing crazy, but you learn to work with it and work through it. And if you need to make subtle changes, fine, so be it. But it never goes away. You just got to keep trucking. That's all you can do.
Absolutely. So, in general, what are your thoughts on the current state of the industry?
In general, outside of maybe like the late 90s and early 2000s, I don't think there's ever been a better time in the industry. I really don't. For a while, there was one show and there was one game in town, and it was just WWE, which is fine. They did their thing, and there's nothing else out there. But then, recently you have AEW. More recently, like TNA wrestling, man, the stuff that they've been doing and putting out has just been on the crazy up and up in the last couple of years. There's literally now, there's 3 mainstream companies now that if you are fortunate enough to get a call and go work for, you're in good hands. You know what I mean? Like you made it. if you will. Outside of that, I mean, the talent in the industry right now, both from a male and female perspective, you can't tell me there's ever been a better time. Maybe, maybe the Attitude Era, but the females weren't really doing what they were doing back then.
Right.
You can't tell me there's been a better time than now, where the talent pool, wherever you go or whatever you're watching, is just second to none. The stuff that they're doing at the WWE Performance Center, or even locally, man, like LeBron Kozol and Firestar Pro Wrestling, they turn out some of the best talent, not just in North Carolina, but in the country. He's had guys get signed left and right, straight out of his school. Javon Evans, NXT. He was, came out of Firestar. Griff Garrison came out of Firestar. So many people have come and gone through there that have made it to the big time. So the state of the industry right now, there's not a better time to try to be in it or get in it, if you're asking me.
Right. I've got to say, having watched this stuff for as long as I have, I feel like right now is just such a cool time, because for the first time in a long time, you really feel like just about anything is possible. I mean, and all of this current collaboration between WWE and TNA.
Oh, it's awesome.
This stuff would never have happened under Vince.
No.
Vince wanted the world to believe there was nothing other than
it was just WWE. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
And to acknowledge and show the respect to the other companies to actually collaborate with them and have these dream crossovers is just so darn cool.
It's awesome. Like you said, you don't know what's going to happen or who's going to pop up on NXT on a Tuesday night. You don't know who's going to pop up in TNA on Thursdays. And the best part about it too is that wrestling is on literally 5 days out of the week. You know what I mean? You got Raw on Monday, you got NXT Tuesday, you got AEW tonight, you got TNA tomorrow, you got Collision on Saturday, you got SmackDown on Friday. Yeah. So literally 6 days out of the week. 6 days out of the week, there's wrestling on TV at some point, which is awesome. You know what I mean? So anyone that says they don't, you can't sit here and say, "Well, I don't have time to watch wrestling." You do. It's on 6 days a freaking week. Of course you do.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
I mean, there's so much of it. It's hard to carve out the time to keep up with it all. I mean,
thank God for DVRs, right? Because if it's no DVRs, you'd be missing it. So thank God. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you're still a comparatively young guy, but if you could, knowing everything you know now, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Honestly, as simple as this may sound, I would sit there and say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is I could tell you things that I worried about or thought were so important, in my teens or early 20s or whatever it was. And, you think they're so important. You think they're going to have this big impact on your life, or you think your life's going to be over. If you don't, it doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. You know what I mean? Personally, I don't think you hit your peak as a human being until your early 30s. I thought, I would say, so all that stuff, just don't pay attention. It doesn't matter. What that thing you didn't get to do is going to be nothing, because you're going to be able to do greater things down the road. You know what I mean? That person you didn't get to meet, it's okay, because I guarantee you're going to get to meet your hero or that person down the road. Basically just to, be open-minded. You know what I mean? Love your friends, love your family. Everyone else comes and goes, but your friends and family, and the true ones are the ones that are going to be there for you. But in a nutshell, if I were going to tell myself me specifically, my younger self, give them a piece of advice, it doesn't matter. The stuff I worried about doesn't matter because it
Yeah.
wasn't important. You think it's important at the time, but then like as you get older and you start to experience more stuff in life or
Mhm.
work or whatever the case may be, you realize just like, man, did I really waste a minute of my time back then worrying about this minuscule stupid shit? Like it just doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So
Yeah. And, like you were saying, the older you get, you really do come to those realizations that really there is very little in life that truly does matter. What matters, are the people around you and the relationships and that
yeah,
kind of
man.
thing.
It's
All
just
of the other stuff is just extraneous.
Yeah, if you're fortunate enough to wake up every morning and you can have 2 feet touch the ground, and whether your children are safe and happy, and if you have a significant
Mhm.
other and they're safe and happy, and your family's taken care of, and you have you know a group of friends that you're fortunate enough to consider family that you can look out for and talk to and take care of if you can, that's what matters, man. I mean,
Absolutely.
all this other crap out there, it doesn't matter. Like, not many people, um, a lot of guys and girls, they want to be professional wrestlers, right?
Right.
Um, a lot of them don't end up doing it. And whether for what reason or another, that it doesn't happen. It's not, the universe didn't have it planned out for them. I consider myself extremely blessed, and I'm just so grateful to be able to do what I do with the people that I get to do it with. Um, you know, Never in a million years would you have told me that I'd be where I am today. And again, I've been very blessed to have certain individuals in my life to help me along the way, whether it was LeBron Cozone or Mark. Um, you know, I'm very lucky in that sense that um, I was afforded the opportunity and given the opportunity to do what I do and have the people um, and the support system around me to do it too. So
Got you. Got
yeah.
you. It's been really exciting, getting to do these live streams. I really am enjoying actually talking to people that are in the indies and basically sort of helping tell the story of people chasing a dream.
Hmm.
And I just think that is just so cool, and it's neat to at almost 55 years old now, suddenly be a small part of the wrestling business. you
Yeah,
know,
and
to,
it's just
to,
great,
act,
man.
to actually have an involvement in it, on a very small scale, but just to have an involvement in the business is just
No,
so
man.
cool. I
The
mean,
the platform that you allow for us as indie wrestlers is fantastic, man. You do a great job. Um, you're not just another cookie cutter podcast where you just, well, what about this and this and that? Just go through like we've literally had a conversation here about life and the business and other things that is going on in the world. So keep doing your thing, man. This is awesome, and welcome to the family. It's the platform
well, I
that you
appreciate
provide. The platform you provide to us is, it helps us. I'm sure it helps you a little bit too. Um, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So, do you have a favorite move, something that you just really enjoy doing? And on the flip side of that, is there a move that you won't do or at least would rather not do?
Uh, my favorite move to do. I've kind of become kind of like a suplex connoisseur, if you will. Whether it's a German, a belly to belly, a snap, a stall, whatever it is. I love giving suplexes. My finisher, which is a TKO, I love as well. Um, what do I not like? Pile drivers, man. I don't like them. I don't like taking them. If I have a choice, no thank you.
Yeah.
Chops, those aren't fun to take,
I'm
but
sure.
yeah, they're not fun, but they're not the worst thing in the world because it's so quick and the pain is there, and then you don't have enough time to think about it because usually you're getting your ass kicked doing something else, or you're kicking someone else's ass doing something else, so you don't really feel those as much. They look and sound atrocious, and they are. There's nothing you can't prepare yourself for taking one of those. It's just this crazy like thing that happens. Did you ever get chopped growing up as a kid across the chest?
Oh yeah.
No.
Uh, back in college, my dorm floor would have wrestling night, and we would, yeah,
Yeah,
we would chop each other and do all kinds of crazy stuff,
yeah. No,
So
I mean, there's been times by certain individuals I've been chopped, and it's just like time stood still, and like my soul left my body, and I was kind of hovering there for a second, trying to be
Mhm.
like, what the hell just happened? Um, yeah, specifically, of course, it was my very, very first match. This is prior to me graduating from training school. Um, I was booked on a show with the permission of my trainer, and I got to work another local talent. His name is TDT, Tevin Turner. Um, and Tevin is just a big, strong son of a bitch, man. And I remember he doesn't just give you the chop, right? He gives you the double overhand on the chest chop.
Like
And
the Keith Lee bear
yeah,
paws.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he puts Keith Lee to shame, and that says
Oh
a
my
lot.
goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
he stopped me so hard with that double right in my chest. His handprints were here for a good 2 weeks,
Oh
probably.
wow.
It just yeah, he's a very talented, very heavy-handed individual. So yeah, so chops they're not fun. You do them, they're not fun. They don't tickle. But pile drivers, man, anything that has to do with me getting dropped on, I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm just not.
Yeah.
This is dangerous. This is wrestling is dangerous as it is. You know what I mean? Will I take one? Sure, of course, yeah. Would I prefer not to? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not a wrestler, but a move that has always terrified me to watch is the vertebreaker. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, man. Yeah.
that move just seems like a recipe for disaster. I
And,
mean,
and I'm sure it has been on a couple
oh
of
yeah,
occasions. You
yeah,
know, yeah, man. There's not a lot of good things that can happen if you're about to get dropped on your head and you can't brace yourself or your hands are
right.
tied or whatever the case may be. Like there's only one place for you to go, and you're getting dropped on your head, and you just gotta tuck your chin and grit your teeth and hope for the best.
Pretty much, pretty
That's all you
much.
can do. Yeah.
So, something that I've done on all of these, and it's just been kind of fun, is I've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest.
Okay.
So last night I had Mark, and
Oh
he
God.
and he posed a two-part question for you, and
Two
that
part. Of
is
course it
yeah,
is.
and that is in the last 18 months, what has been your favorite moment? And part two of that is why will you not eat at Waffle House?
So hold on. So let's start with part one first. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So like I said, Mark and I we've been tagging for March, April, May, June, July, August. Just about 18 months. Uh, and the list of opponents we've gotten to work with in the last 18 months is absurd. Uh, I would have to say it was we got a chance to work Heath Slater, Rhino, and Suicide in a 6-man match,
Oh
uh,
wow.
which ended up being like a no DQ type thing, like halfway through,
Hmm.
and that was just fun as hell, man. Like that was we talk about that one to this day. But I would probably have to say the moment we had in the ring this past Sunday when Tommy Dreamer was coming out and we were getting ready to work him. Again, I'm just sitting there, in the zone, getting ready to go. I'm kind of like crouched down in the corner, and that music hit, and my eyes were just fixated to that entranceway, man.
Yeah.
I just wanted to soak it in. I just wanted to watch him walk around the ring and hear that music play. I think at one point, Mark was just like, Alex, let's get out of the ring. And I didn't move. He's like, Alex, let's get out of the ring. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. We've been sucking this thing in. But the Waffle House thing, man, I don't refuse to go to Waffle House. I just have never been to a Waffle House. I know that's like sacrilegious being a professional wrestler, like, 9 times out of 10. When you're done with a show, that's probably like the only thing that's open, right? On your way home or whatever the case may be. But like for me, my mindset, man, like when the show's over, if I'm not riding with anybody, if I go to a show by myself, when the show's over, I do my thing. I help do what I got to do. I'm in my car. And for me, my thing is if it's a 4-hour drive or less, I'm going home. I'm gonna drive home. I'm gonna sleep in my own bed. I'll make something to eat when I go home, and that's it. Yeah, I'm not opposed to Waffle House. I will go to a Waffle House. I don't even have to be coming home or to a show. I will go to a Waffle House. But see, like growing up back in the Northeast in New York, which is not that many down here in North Carolina, it was Denny's. Right, Denny's was a big place. That was the thing that was open 24/7 that you'd go to after concerts or shows or movies. You'd go and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've passed them. I've seen them. I've never ventured into a Waffle House. And there's a lot of things, man. Like when people are like, "Oh, you live in North Carolina? You ever been to this?" There's a lot of like staples down here in North Carolina that I've never been to. I've never had, and I tell people that, and they're like, "What? Like you've never had Bojangles or you've never had Cookout?" Just like, man, I got to be half naked in front of hundreds of people, if not thousands, when they watch it on the internet. Like I eat pretty clean and try to take care of myself. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, I've never had Waffle House. I will be. I'll say it here on the podcast right now. Before the year is over, I will have gone to a Waffle House. I'll eat something.
Awesome.
So you can hold it.
We'll have to have you back on so you can give us a review.
I'll tell you what I ordered, man, how it was, and the whole nine. Yeah, absolutely.
So, since this is part of a series, do you have a question that you would like to pose to the next guest? And my next wrestling-related guest will be this coming Monday, the 9th. I've got an indie wrestler named Jagger Lane who's going to be my guest.
Okay.
So, anything you'd like to pose to him?
Yeah. And I really think this is a good question because it really doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. Because you could have been in it, like 3 years for me, or someone might be in it for 30 years. But if you could go back and change one thing that you would have done differently in your professional wrestling career, what is it and why?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
And how would you answer that?
I would say like I probably wouldn't have second guessed myself as much as I did. Because and part of my thing is that like I got this huge chip on my shoulder, man. I've made a lifetime and a short-lived career in this business out of proving people wrong, and I get a sick sense of enjoyment out of doing that. I love proving people wrong. I love when people tell me, "Don't bother. It's not going to work out in your favor." Really? Okay, because I wanted to do it before, but now that you're telling me that, I'm going to do it tenfold just so I can throw it in your face. So yeah, I probably would not have wanted to second guess myself as much as I did, and I feel like I'm kind of starting now to break through with that, and it's exciting time, man. It's exciting time. Mark and I got some pretty awesome stuff lined up here in the next couple of months and into next year. And, you know, it's the wrestling business, man. You never know what can happen, and you never say never.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes using the naysayers as fuel is remarkable. What it can result in.
There's no, to me, there's no better motivation than being able to prove the naysayers wrong. Like, the dumbest thing you could do, the absolute dumbest thing you can do is tell me I can't do something, or tell me I won't do something. Because, like I said, 9 times out of 10, I was either planning on it or wanting to do it as it is. But now that you told me I can't do it, or you think it's impossible, well, now it's a challenge, and now you're calling me out. Big problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much at the end of things now, Alex. So do you have anything coming up that you'd like to give some hype to?
Yeah, Mark and I mean, we got a very busy rest of the year. We got a lot of shows coming up. A couple of weeks, we're doing this really cool show where it's going to be Ace against IWE, and like 2 promotions that are kind of doing like co-op show, like head-to-head type thing. We get to work 2 guys that we haven't gotten to work yet. A guy named Drew Hood and another individual named James Johnson, both exceptional talents. And you know, they've been like on our bucket list for a while. So to be able to get in there and mix it up with them, that's going to be awesome. I think that's either the 6th or 16th of October in Lexington, North Carolina. But also in November, Mark and I we're booked for WrestleCade weekend. We'll be signing that Saturday at WrestleCade weekend. We did it last year. It was fantastic, and we got brought on again this year to do it. For those aren't aware, like, WrestleCade is, if not maybe like the 2nd biggest wrestling convention that is thrown annually. And it's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's a 3-day event just stacked with signings and special attractions and shows. So we're doing that. That's the weekend right after Thanksgiving. And then we're going to finish out the year strong. We had a couple shows in December, and then 2025 is just scarily right around the corner. We're just going to hit the ground running, keep our momentum, and see what happens next year with us too.
Absolutely. That is, it's exciting to hear that, you know, so many good things seem to be breaking for the 2 of you. I mean, that is really, really neat. And
people
and man,
people forget Mark and I have only been doing this together for, you know, 16, 18 months. Like, we're just getting started. We're really just getting started. I mean, if people think the last 18 months have been awesome or amazing for us, man, they ain't seen nothing yet. We're just getting started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a great conversation, man. And you know, for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be seeing this on replays and such, thank you for that. If you like what we've got going here, definitely spread the word. This thing is really taking on a life of its own, and it's just exciting to be along for this ride and see where it goes. You know.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much. This was awesome. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I wish nothing but the best. I think big things are coming for you in the podcast, and this has been an awesome conversation. And like I said, just keep doing your thing, man. Everyone loves what you're doing, and I hope you keep doing it. Don't stop.
I appreciate it, man. So Friday at 7 p.m., I've got a music-related episode. I'm going to be talking with a band called We Are the Storm. And then Monday the 9th, I've got Jagger Lane, and I've got a couple. I've got one other booking next week that you know, be watching my social media, because I'll be dropping some details about that. But
Awesome.
there's a lot more stuff coming, and you know, like I said, I'm just having a blast doing these. So everybody.